Colonel Potter, sir, my last wish is to be buried in my mother's wedding gown.
I've seen these Dodgers for 40 years, all the tricks. Dismissed!
Right before Loretta Swit, who played the awesome Major Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan, passed away, she finally talked after keeping quiet for years. She loved her co-stars and stayed loyal, but she spilled the tea about why some big actors left the show and what kind of drama happened behind the scenes. MASH wasn't just any TV show, it changed TV forever. This super cool CBS show ran from September 17th, 1972 to February 28th, 1983. It mixed real war stuff with funny moments in a way no one had done before. It came from a 1970 movie called MASH, which was based on a 1968 book by Richard Hooker about 3 army doctors. The show is set in Uijeongbu, South Korea during the Korean War. It follows doctors and staff dealing with hurt soldiers, missing home, and feeling heartbroken. Sometimes it was just plain silly. The show could make you laugh one second and cry the next. It wasn't just about war, it was about being human. The first cast had awesome characters. Alan Alda played the sassy surgeon Hawkeye Pierce. Wayne Rogers was his fun buddy Trapper John. Loretta Swit was the tough but sweet head nurse Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan. And Larry Linville was the strict Frank Burns. McLean Stevenson was the chill Colonel Henry Blake. Gary Burghoff was the cute, quirky Radar O'Reilly. Jamie Farr was the funny cross-dressing Klinger. And William Christopher was the kind priest Father Mulcahy. As the show went on, some actors left and new ones joined. When Wayne Rogers left, Mike Farrell became B.J. Honeycutt. After McLean Stevenson left, Harry Morgan played Colonel Sherman Potter. When Larry Linville left, David Ogden Stiers joined as the fancy but nice Dr. Charles Winchester. And when Radar left, Klinger took his job as company clerk. Every new person was special, and even with changes, MASH stayed awesome. Lots of episodes came from real stories of doctors in the Korean War. Alan Alda even helped write and direct some episodes which made them feel super personal. MASH became one of the most loved shows ever, and its final episode, Goodbye, Farewell and Amen, in 1983, was the most watched TV episode in America for years. It was funny, sad, and unforgettable. MASH was part of people's lives. Now, let's talk about Loretta Swit. She was born on November 4th, 1937 in Passaic, New Jersey, to a Polish-American family. Her parents, Lester and Nellie Swit, worked hard raising Loretta and her older brother, Robert. Her dad was a salesman and fixed furniture. Even as a kid, Loretta was full of energy. She joined the Girl Scouts at her church, Holy Rosary, and went to Pope Pius XV-themed high school. She wasn't shy. She was a cheerleader, acted in school plays, and helped lead the girls' basketball team. After graduating in 1955, she went to a fancy school called Catherine Gibbs in Montclair and finished in 1957. Like many girls back then, she started with office jobs, like typing for a fancy lady named Elsa Maxwell and working for the Ghana ambassador at the UN. But secretly, Loretta dreamed of being a star. She took dance lessons with a Rockette friend and acting classes in New York with a coach named Gene Frankel. She also studied singing at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. All this helped her become a big deal in showbiz. Loretta started acting in theatre. Her first job was in a play called An Enemy of the People, and by 1961, she was in the balcony at a famous theatre. She kept acting in plays during the 1960s and 70s, like Any Wednesday, and worked with stars like Don Rickles and Ernest Borgnine in The Odd Couple. In 1975, she starred in Same Time, Next Year on Broadway, and did other plays like The Mystery of Edwin Drood. She even performed in Las Vegas. From the 1990s to 2010s, she did a one-woman show called Shirley Valentine, and other plays like Amorous Crossing and 6 Dance Lessons in 6 Weeks. In 1969, she moved to Hollywood and got guest roles on shows like Hawaii Five-0, Gunsmoke, Mission Impossible, and Mannix. Then, MASH came along and changed everything. Loretta Swit became a legend as Major Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan on MASH. The show mixed funny and serious moments during the Korean War, and her character was a big deal. She took the role from Sally Kellerman, who played Margaret in the 1970 MASH movie, but Loretta made it her own. At first, Margaret was super strict and loved her country a lot. She only got along with Frank Burns, played by Larry Linville, and they were a weird, messy couple. But as the show went on, Margaret became nicer and more likable. She married a lieutenant colonel, but it didn't last. After that, she made real friends with the doctors and nurses and started caring about the Korean people near the camp. This was part of how MASH changed from super silly to a mix of funny and real feelings. Loretta was one of only 4 actors who stayed on MASH for all 11 seasons, along with Alda, Jamie Farr, and William Christopher. She and Alan were in the first episode and the super emotional last one. Out of 256 episodes, Loretta was in all but 11. She won 2 Emmy Awards for her amazing acting. Her favorite episodes were Hot Lips and Empty Arms, Margaret's Engagement, and The Nurses, which showed more about Margaret's life. Off-screen, she was super close with her co-stars, like Harry Morgan, who played Colonel Potter. They were neighbours until he passed away in 2011. She also stayed close with Alda and his family, like his wife and kids. MASH was loved for its laughs and heart, but behind the scenes, it wasn't always happy. There were fights and disagreements, especially about who got more time on screen and who controlled the show. Alda, who played Hawkeye, wasn't just the star, he became the main guy. He acted, wrote, and directed episodes, and the show started focusing more on his character. This made some actors like Wayne Rogers, Trapper John, and McLean Stevenson, Henry Blake, upset because they felt left out. Wayne said the show didn't feel like a team anymore. It was like the Hawkeye show. He wanted to be a big part of the story, but Hawkeye got all the attention. The writers and actors sometimes argued about the script or where the show was going. One writer, Ken Levine, said they made an episode in super cold weather just to keep the actors too cold to complain about their lines. It was kind of a joke, but it showed there was tension between the writers and the cast. Loretta Swit was stuck in the middle. She worked hard to keep everyone getting along, like a team captain. She didn't say much about it, but she hinted that MASH wasn't always fun to work on and keeping the peace took a lot of effort. McLean Stevenson left in 1975 and it shocked fans. He played the lovable Colonel Henry Blake, who felt like a friendly dad. But McLean got frustrated because his character didn't grow and he wanted to do more. He also felt like people loved Henry Blake, not him as an actor. A Reddit user put it simply, McLean thought everyone loved him, but they really loved his character. In a 1990 interview, he said he regretted leaving because he realized fans cared about Henry, not him. Loretta said McLean felt ignored in the big cast. His character's death in the episode Abyssinia Henry was a huge shock to fans. McLean thought he might come back sometimes, but the show moved on without him. His exit was about wanting to grow, feeling left out, and chasing his own dreams. Wayne Rogers left after season 3 in 1975 because he wasn't getting enough attention. When he joined, he thought Trapper John would be just as important as Hawkeye. But Alda's character took over, even getting storylines that should have been Trapper's, like being the best surgeon. Wayne's manager told a newspaper he was tired of being in Alan's shadow. Wayne also had a contract fight. He wanted more control and better pay. So he left, started his own show, and did well outside acting. He and Alan stayed friends though, and Alan even spoke at Wayne's funeral, so it wasn't personal, just work stuff. Larry Linville, who played the stuck-up Frank Burns, left after 5 years in the mid-1970s. He felt like Frank didn't change or grow. In an interview, Larry said he did everything he could with the character, but it wasn't enough. His contract was up, and the producers wanted him to stay, but he didn't want to keep playing the same bad guy. He wanted to try new roles and not just be that Frank Burns guy. His co-stars respected his choice. Frank left the show quietly, and Larry went on to do guest roles on shows like The Rockford Files and Chips. He left to be more than just a cartoon villain. Gary Burghoff, who played the sweet Radar O'Reilly, left after season 7 in 1979 for 2 big reasons. He was tired and there was tension on set. Gary was almost 40 but still playing a young kid and it wore him out. He said filming was super hard and he needed time with his family. Also, he didn't always get along with everyone. A 1983 book about Alan Alda said Gary and McLean Stevenson had a big yelling fight once, and Wayne Rogers threw a chair at Gary during an argument. Even though fans loved Radar, some people found Gary hard to work with. In the end, he left to take care of his family and health and to avoid more fights. His last episode, Goodbye Radar, was emotional, showing how much Radar meant to everyone, but also how Gary was ready to go. His co-stars still loved Radar's charm, even if Gary wasn't always easy. Alan Alda wasn't just the star, he became the heart of MASH. He started writing and directing, and by the late 1970s, he was even a producer. His ideas made the show deeper and more serious, which fans loved. Loretta Swit was super close to him and said he was smart and kind, not like the grumpy Hawkeye. They stayed friends forever. But not everyone liked how much Alan controlled the show. Some actors felt it wasn't a team anymore. It was all about Hawkeye. This made MASH amazing and award-winning, but it also caused fights. Some actors felt pushed aside as Hawkeye became the main focus. Loretta stayed loyal, but for others it was tough to handle. Before Loretta Swit passed away at 87, she shared the real story about why her co-stars left. She said being on MASH wasn't always easy, especially as one of the few women in a mostly guy cast. She had to work hard to keep things calm. Loretta Swit said being on MASH wasn't always a walk in the park, especially since she was one of the only girls in a big group of guys. She had to work extra hard to keep things chill on set, like when your group project at school gets a little crazy and you're the one calming everyone down. Loretta was like the glue holding the team together, even when people were grumpy or arguing. She didn't complain much, but she admitted it took a lot of energy to make sure everyone could still do their jobs and keep the show awesome. Being Major Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan made Loretta a star, but it wasn't always easy playing such a strong character. At first, Margaret was super tough, like a teacher who never smiles. She followed every rule and only liked Frank Burns, who was kind of a jerk. But as the show went on, Loretta helped make Margaret softer and more real. She showed how Margaret could be brave, but also have a big heart. Like when she started caring about the Korean people near the camp, or became buddies with the other nurses. Loretta loved those changes because they made Margaret feel like a real person, not just a cartoon. Off-screen, Loretta was super tight with her co-stars, even when things got messy. She and Harry Morgan, who played Colonel Potter, were like besties. They lived next door to each other after the show ended, and Loretta said Harry was like a dad to her. She'd visit him, and they'd laugh about old times on MASH. She was also super close to Alan Alda, who played Hawkeye. Loretta said Alan was nothing like his sarcastic character. He was kind, funny, and always helped her out. They stayed friends for years, and Loretta even hung out with Alan's wife and kids, like they were family. But not everyone got along as well as Loretta did. The MASH set was like a big school cafeteria. Sometimes it was fun, but other times people didn't sit at the same table. Alan Alda was the big star, and as he started writing and directing, some actors felt like he was getting all the attention. It was like when one kid in class always gets picked to lead the game and others feel left out. Wayne Rogers and McLean Stevenson left because they wanted to be bigger parts of the story, not just sidekicks to Hawkeye. Loretta understood why they were upset, but she stayed because she loved the show and believed in its message. Loretta also had to deal with being a woman in a man's world. Back then, TV shows didn't always give women big roles, so Loretta was proud to play a strong character like Margaret. But sometimes, she felt like she had to prove herself extra hard to be taken seriously. She said in interviews that she'd speak up when she thought Margaret's story wasn't right, like when the writers made her too mean. Loretta wanted Margaret to grow, and she fought to make her character someone girls could look up to. That took guts, like standing up to a bully on the playground. One big thing Loretta talked about before she passed away was how MASH changed over time. In the early seasons, it was super silly, with lots of jokes and pranks. But as the show went on, it got deeper, talking about serious stuff like war, loss, and friendship. Loretta loved that change because it made MASH more than just a funny show.